I was in my second year at Manus, and another, not my main teacher, but another teacher on the faculty who was a mentor of mine, Eteri Andreparidze, gave a recital of all Scriabin. And I went and, not really knowing what to expect all that much, because it was a lot of the late works and, some of kind of like what I played actually. And I got there and it was one of these recitals where it was combined with light show and all this kind of thing that you do with Scriabin sometimes. And she came out and she started the recital with Vers la Flamme, Toward the Flame, with the hall in complete darkness. And the music in her playing was so cool. And I felt like I was like inside a volcano that slowly, bubbled up and then erupted at the end. And I was fascinated by this recital. And then I went to talk to her after the concert. And I had been thinking, I want to play this, especially that first piece, Vers la Flamme. And she said to me, Reed, when I started to play Vers la Flamme, I thought this would be a good piece for Reed. So we had the same thought there. And then I started learning it. So I started with this piece, which was one of the last he wrote. Kind of, normally you might start with an early piece or something. Mm-hmm. Go right into the late Scriabin, and then I was really hooked on it. The music was like a drug. It has that effect on many people, he's one of those composers where you get into him and then you don't want to listen to anything else for weeks. And so I had that experience. Now it's kind of regulated, and Scriabin is not exactly like daily bread for me, but it's kind of something that you get drunk on once in a while, and it can be a really great experience to play, especially.
What are you working on right now, for example?
Gosh, well, while I've been here, hunkered down, I've been doing so much repertoire, so many new things that I've just wanted to always have the chance to work on and play. Actually, I was working on Carnival by Schumann the other day, and I thought, actually, this is the perfect piece for when I have a concert again, because, Carnival describes a gathering, ball, and not only a ball, but everyone's wearing masks, right? It's a mask ball. So and that just struck me as, that's the perfect piece for now. But that and Beethoven sonatas, Chopin, Schubert, just kind of getting my hands on all sorts of things that I always wanted to play.
Well, as an artist, we always prepare for something, right? We're preparing for concerts. So that's usually our inspiration or initiative, right? To sit down and start practicing. Now we really don't know when that time is going to be, right? It can be maybe middle of July for 2-3 people, or it can be in 2021.
Yeah.
So what inspires you to sit down at the piano?
Well, we have to be, our relationship to music has to be one that we are content to just sit down and play for our own enrichment. Not because we have to do it in order to prepare for something, not as a job. And then I think the joy of sharing it for people comes to you naturally once you sort of have that relationship yourself. So, I don't know. I haven't really suffered in inspiration or anything, because I just have so much repertoire that I want to play, so much that I want to work on. So, if I'm given months where I have nothing to do but to do that, then I'm grateful for it. Actually, I'd always wished, when things were really busy, I would often think, what if I just had a month to do nothing and learn this and this and this. So now that's what I have, more than a month. But, yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Is there anything else apart music that you spend your time with?
Gosh, well, yeah. It's so different being here than compared to New York, because I'm in this small town, northern Massachusetts, but I'm close to the ocean. I'm in nature, so I can enjoy all that, those kind of things that we don't get in the big city so much. So that's been nice.
Remind me, are you staying with your parents right now? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 siblings. So
and are they there with you, or?
We are all here, yeah.
Ah.
My sister, was in college up here, and my brother teaches. He's a high school teacher, English teacher, and he teaches up here too. So we're all converged on the house right now.
Okay. When was the last time you were all together?
Before this,
Yes.
Christmas a few days, but
Right.
never for this long.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, but it's been fine. I mean, I'm lucky that I have sort of this safety net, that I had this place to fall back into and ride it out. So,
Absolutely. No, that's great. So let's go back in time.
yeah.
And I read in your biography you grew up in Minnesota. And how did your musical journey start?
Yeah, well, I was actually really lucky as a kid because I was not always, alone in my interests in music. I mean, I went to this summer piano festival starting from when I was like 11 years old, and I made a lot of friends there that, um, were as passionate as I was about music, and we kind of stayed in touch throughout the year, and we went through this journey together. And I also got really interested in listening to orchestral repertoire and opera, and I think that was really important for me. And I had people that shared that interest. We would go to, say, the concerts of the Minnesota Orchestra together and enjoy that. So so I had this kind of structure of musicians around me, and of course my teacher, Paul Worth, who I studied with for 8 years there.
And that summer music camp was outside of Minneapolis, or?
No, it was actually in, for some years it was in a different part of Minnesota, and then it moved to Minneapolis. But people came from around the country, and, we had some international students also. So, yeah.
And,
It was a great experience. Yeah.
well, that's great. It's unusual to have a kind of supporting environment, or
Yeah,
especially to find kids that enjoy the same thing.
And I didn't have that at school. And I actually remember I went to a new school in 7th grade, and I was, terrified of being a nerd or something. And I didn't tell any of my friends for a year. Nobody knew I ever touched a piano. I didn't want anyone to know that. But I had friends that, I shared it with, which was really lucky.
So your journey to New York City, was it for school or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I was going to college, I went to Manus in New York City, and I studied with Pavlina Dukovska. And I ended up doing my bachelor and master's there. So 6 years at Manus, and then I've just stayed after I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit more about Pavlina Dukovska. Very few people outside of piano world know who she is, but she's quite a figure for pianists, especially the students.
True. Yeah, I mean, the first thing that everyone says about her is how devoted she is to her students, and how she becomes a part of your life, in a good way, not in some kind of intrusive way or anything like that. It's very positive, but so I can say that as well. But just as a teacher, I mean, she would give me multiple lessons a week. If I was preparing for something, I remember a time when I had a concert, and I was playing this one short piece. I think it was Debussy, one of the preludes that she had never heard me play, and Debussy was one of her sort of specialties in repertoire. And she had me come about 6 days in a row and just work on this one prelude, so that it would be up to her standards, right? That was in my freshman year, sophomore year. But I'm really grateful to her for basically equipping me with tools that we need to interpret pieces, and to get what we want out of the instrument, how to make a beautiful sound, how to make the sound that we want, and how to sort of find an image that we want to express for a piece, and then be able to produce it at the piano. So all of that very detailed, very painstaking work that she devoted herself to doing with me.
I see. So out of all the people that you've studied with, was there a particular person who you would say definitely, well, of course, each teacher leaves a very important mark on us, and each one brings something. But somebody who you feel, after working with that person, you sort of started going on a journey of finding your own voice.
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I've had, like, my teacher in Minnesota, and then Dukovska. They're really the two main teachers, and then of course I've played for several other people. Sometimes, with some regularity. Sometimes I play for them once. But I mean, it would be hard to single anyone out. But I have taken like equal amounts of inspiration from, non-pianists. I had a class at Manus. Actually, I took several classes with this professor. First was music history, and then he did an elective course on Bach and an elective course on composers' autographs. And this professor, Fred Feleisen, he's a violinist, but fantastic musician. And he said once that the aim of any performance, is not to play well. It's not to impress the audience. It's not to, kind of play the piece as they expected to hear it. And then they say, oh, that was nice. That's, what I expected. And he did it. It's to make them say, that's it. End of story. Make them say, what's that? And make them curious. So, that kind of solidified to me the importance of how to explore a piece and find, something to say about it that is in the score, but maybe lost in tradition or something. Seeing the piece as something new and trying to play it so that the audience hears it as if it's being made up. And that's what makes them say, that's, I hadn't thought of it that way before. So that's one concept that inspired me. And that came from, someone who's not a pianist, but a great musician. So.
Fantastic. Did you have to do, as a student, did you have to do a lot of accompanying?
I did, yeah. Let me think. I didn't have to, but I wanted to in many cases. We were required to take 2 years of chorus, and maybe this was because I just didn't want to sing. I ended up accompanying the chorus, and did things like the Fauré Requiem and Brahms' Mania, which I was the pianist for, and that was really, really fun and unforgettable. I also worked with singers, of course, and we had chamber music. So, what
was your experience with working with singers in a studio class?
Oh, that was it was really fun. I remember my first year I took an elective on song interpretation, and that really inspired me with Schubert and Schumann. So much of what they do, when they create a line, the coach would say something like, as you sing this line, take your hand, put it to your mouth, and slowly move it away as you're singing the line. They have these tricks, and I would try that at the piano. I'd be like, oh, that kind of changed things. So I think we can, learn so much from their repertoire, their sound, both in lieder and in opera. So that was also important.
No, I definitely, in my own personal life, I growing up with a mother who is an opera singer, I definitely feel it has influenced my playing.
Sure.
And how I approach the line, or how I approach the shape of the melody.
Right. Well, in addition to sound production and vocal line, then there's the whole other side of this, which is the drama, and how to act. And it's easier when there are words, of course, but we can take sort of the impetus from that and apply it to ourselves. I think of listening to Maria Callas, for example, who, when you compare her to other sopranos of the era, say Tebaldi, you don't think, oh, she has the most, silky, beautiful voice, but she's the greatest actor and the greatest dramatist, and that's why, we all, that's why she affects us this way. So anyway, yeah, taking the sense of drama from opera and from a Schubert song, and
right.
Very helpful, yeah.
So Reed, up till now, how many CDs have you recorded?
I've recorded and released one, and that was a couple of years ago. I had some plans for another one, and they've been interrupted a bit by COVID, but I have my ideas. I've maybe even recorded part of it. We'll see.
And when you were choosing, tell a little bit, because our audience doesn't know about your CD. If you can tell a little bit about the process of choosing the repertoire for the recording, why it is
So the CD is called Sounds of Transcendence, and I was interested, especially at this time of transcendental music, or sort of music that aims for something objective and spiritual, and not so much of a human emotion or human world. And so I ended up with Scriabin, some of the late pieces, actually many of the pieces I played for Grand Piano Series. And of course, Scriabin was this mystic, and he felt actually that he was God in a way, and wrote music to express sort of this mystical sense that he had. And he would say that there's no conflict, there's no human conflict in his music. He didn't like minor keys because they're too negative. Everything has to be exalted and spiritual. So there's that. And then I paired it with Franck, the Prelude, Chorale, and Fugue, which comes at spirituality from a totally different, this devoutly Catholic, Gothic perspective, where the music is just like a great cathedral. And then I put in Charles Griffiths, who's an American composer, a contemporary of Scriabin. And he wrote, I put in two pieces of Griffiths. One is the Pleasure Dome of Kubla Khan, which is based on the poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, or Samuel Coleridge Taylor. There's one poet with that name, and there's a composer with the same name, but the Coleridge and the Taylor are flipped, so I get them mixed up. Anyway, that poem. And then there's a Piano Sonata by Griffiths, which was often compared to Scriabin and this kind of thing. So,
if you had to describe music of Griffith, for somebody who has never heard his works, what would you?
Well, some of it is there's some differences in even the two pieces that I talked about. The first, the Pleasure Dome, is kind of perfumed and impressionistic, and it's an earlier work of Griffiths. He was an American who studied in Berlin, and he absorbed sort of all of the post-Wagnerian trends of the turn of the century, and he came back to America, and he became a school teacher in Tarrytown, New York, and it wasn't well known. And then he died tragically in the influenza pandemic of 1819. And one of his last works was the Piano Sonata, and that's this very, it's hard to describe the sound of it. It has a unique kind of sound world. It's based on a scale that's not major or minor. It's just the collection of notes, almost a little bit jazzy, and but it has this very driven, kind of dark psychological side. It's marked. The first movement is marked ferociously, ferocious, and I think it's sort of an invitation to this inner, urges and sort of subconscious. There's this strong subconscious element to the music. It's a really interesting piece. I played it a lot.
Well, I'll be happy to share with our audience the link to your CD so that they can. Okay. Can they find it online and on?
I did it on Spotify and Apple Music, on all the streaming platforms.
So it's possible to listen to little clips, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Great. So Charles Ives, Concord Sonata.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So in the piano world, it's considered to be one of the most challenging piano selections, right? Written for our instrument, right. And very few people who even attempt to open the score, let alone actually learn the piece and play it. Yeah. So tell me, first of all, when was the first time you decided, I think I want to learn Concord?
I don't know if there was a exact time when I decided I'm going to do it. But, for all the reasons you mentioned, I was always curious about the piece because I learned about it as sort of this legend, this legendary thing, that was kind of unattainable and unplayable, and it's so avant-garde, and you have to use a block of wood in the second movement, all this stuff. And I opened up the score. Oh my God, there are no bar lines. How do you count it? all this kind of thing that everybody knows about this piece and everybody talks about. But when I started to actually play it, I was really it kind of threw me for a loop, because I started to realize, this is not. First of all, it's 100 years old. It's not a contemporary piece. It's modernist, but it doesn't belong in a program of, music of our time or something. It was published in 1919.
And also tell a little bit about the composer, Charles Ives.
Yeah. Well, I'll get there, I promise. But what I was going to say is it's not like a piece that you sit down and you execute the score. Some modern music is like that. You do what the score says, and then it will create a cool effect that expresses something. But this is it's pure spirit. I realized that, and it, I had to look into what inspired Ives, which is the Concord Transcendentalists, these 4 writers from Concord, Massachusetts, in the middle of the 19th century: Ralph Waldo Emerson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, the Alcotts, Louisa May Alcott, and Henry David Thoreau. And the ideas of these 4 writers they've become so much of a part of like our consciousness and our lexicon that we take it for granted a bit. But at the time when Emerson wrote Self-Reliance, his essay Self-Reliance, and he wrote things like, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you someone else is the greatest accomplishment. And he wrote, what everyone can do best, only their maker can teach them. And these were pretty radical ideas. Actually, they called this time in Concord with these writers and these ideas, they called it the Second American Revolution. And of course, it was right at the time of emancipation and before the Civil War. All this stuff was kind of in the air. Now, Ives came along like 75 years later, but he's sort of a 5th member of these transcendentalists, an honorary member, through composing this piece and through just who he was, because he was a complete maverick in so many ways. I mean, he had no time for the establishment, so to speak, in music. There's a famous story that he was given a prize, the Pulitzer Prize, actually. He was given the Pulitzer Prize for his 3rd symphony, and he turned it down. He turned down the money, and he said, prizes are for boys, and I'm all grown up. And there are so many quotable things from Ives, like, too many people think that beauty in music is something that lets you sit back in the easy chair and just enjoy. He wanted to challenge his audiences to question their assumptions and to question what they thought they knew. He would put wrong notes in his music just, kind of to see if people would catch them, or, just to say, well, does it matter if I put an A flat here or an A here, because I'm concerned about self-reliance and transcendentalism, and the piece is amazing to me because it's so complex, but it's no more, I don't think it's any more complex than it has to be. And when I walk out on stage, say, to play it, I want it to seem like I was reading an essay from Emerson, backstage, and I'm in this transcendental frame of mind, and I just come to the piano and nobody knows what's going to happen. I sit down and that music just kind of bursts out. And that's the music that has to burst out when you're thinking about Emerson. And, apart from that, it's an incredibly lyrical and beautiful piece. And the last movement, the Thoreau movement, it's one of the most moving pieces of music that I know. And by the end of the piece, he's into this idea of communion with nature. And the last movement depicts Thoreau, who, lived in the woods of Walden Pond. And, he said that he went to the woods because he wanted to, he was afraid that he would come to the end of his life and discover that he'd not actually lived. So he wanted to strip everything down to the essentials, and he would play his flute on the banks of the pond at night. And then at the end of the piece, there's this amazing touch where I'm going on and on about this piece because I love the piece, but there's this amazing touch where you're playing the last movement, Thoreau, and suddenly a flute comes in. The flute's not on stage, it's standing somewhere where you can't see it, but he writes a part for flute, just one page at the end of the piece. And when that hits, it just kills you. It's so moving. People miss that with Ives because they think only of him as a modernist. And he is a modernist, but in the sense that, he expressed himself and his ideas in a totally unique way that moves us in a way that nobody else does, I think. So,
what's the challenge, also not only to find a pianist who is brave enough to take on a project like that, but it's also there. I don't know. Have you had a chance to perform it often?
Yeah, I've performed it. Let me think. Probably 10 times.
Okay.
I played it in Belgium several times because I've done 4 tours there, and one of those years I thought I would share it with those people, over in Belgium, because I don't hear Ives too much, and and everybody responds to it. Actually, I'm happy that it goes over as it does, because it's obviously not an easy piece to listen to.
Right.
Yeah, but it invites this kind of audience participation that music should have, and in that case, it's a transcendental experience for all of us, playing it, listening to it. So.
Wonderful. Well, I have muted most of you, not because I just wanted to limit the background noise, but I do want to open up to you now. And if you have questions, please raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or you unmute yourself and ask questions if you have any. Greg, go ahead.
Hi, Reed.
Hi.
I'd like to comment about make the audience go, It reminded me of a question I think I meant to ask when you were in Naples and never got around to, and that is, I recall a comment that I read attributed to you that referenced something about the need to experience the music as opposed to representing it. And
Right.
if I have that correct, could you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Greg, and it's good to see you. And that's really, that's a complex issue, I think. But I mean, experiencing the music to me could go back to a bit of what I was saying earlier about how, for the performer and the audience, the music has to kind of emerge as if it's being created on the spot. When you sit down to listen to any piece, you don't know how it's going to start. Maybe you do, but you have to put yourself in the mindset that you don't. And I should, have the mindset that I don't know what it's going to do, and then I decide to do this, and then I decide to do that. And so that's kind of how we experience it in real time, I think. I mean, representing the music, I don't know that that's necessarily a negative term. But I think we want to stay away from an approach where you kind of decide, oh, I want to do this and this and this, and I'm going to try to play well, to have an attitude of sort of active creation is what I would say experiencing the music is about, if that gives you any idea. It's a difficult question.
When you sit down to learn something new, do you listen to other people play it, or do you try to?
Yeah, I tried not to, because I mean, I will sit down to learn a piece that I've probably heard before, and maybe I've heard many times. And there are certain traditions that have kind of become codified, in that piece. They may be good, they may be true to the music, and in some cases I think they may not be, but we're kind of expected to do them, but and to follow them. But when I sit down, I try to kind of keep my brain as clear as possible, not to be influenced by anything, so that if I feel that the music needs to go a certain way, then I'll do that. I won't have the inhibition to not, I won't be inhibited because I thought, oh, well, Rubinstein didn't do that in his recording. But what Rubinstein does in his recording is true for Rubinstein, and I might do something different if I'm convinced by something different. So yeah, I mean, I try to just look at the score and make of it what I will make of it, and then maybe later in the process, for some extra inspiration, I might listen to a recording. But that's after I kind of believe in my approach. And of course, my approach changes as time goes on, but I'm not going to play a piece the same now as in 10 years. But as long as I'm approaching it from within myself rather than taking ideas from somewhere else, then I think it will work.
David, you had a question?
Yeah. Hi, Reed. I was always wondering whether, as you go into it for performance, you have an idea, of course, of what you're going to produce.
Yeah.
Does it ever happen that suddenly, sort of during the performance, you surprise yourself and you do something that you didn't expect to do, but you do it anyway because it just felt like you wanted to do it?
Yeah, that's happened for sure. And I don't know. I mean, we have to be sort of flexible enough that we can react to our own choices in performance. So, for example, if I'm playing a piece that's in sonata form and I do something in the exposition a certain way that maybe I didn't expect, but it just happens, then we have to be flexible enough to sort of remember what we did and react in the recapitulation to match it. This goes back to just having an approach to music that's improvisatory, that's creating on the spot. Not to have an interpretation this is how I play and it's set. So yeah, definitely. And if you hear me play something twice, I mean, hopefully it's not going to sound the same.
Well, of course, the extreme to that is that you sit down to play a Chopin piece and it comes out Schubert.
That would be an extreme. Yeah. Yeah. There is, I think, a bit of a tendency that we have to fight where, if we're not fluent enough in the composer's language, because every composer has their own language, and some are very different, and some have similarities, but they're different dialects. Rachmaninoff and Tchaikovsky are obviously closer than Rachmaninoff and Haydn or something. But anyway, if we don't have a clear idea of what language we're speaking, in a piece, that's when Schubert comes out sounding like Prokofiev, and Prokofiev sounds like Debussy, and the Debussy sounds like the Bach, which happens. And so knowing a composer, knowing the composer's other works, their chamber music, their orchestral music, something about their life, something about the time, that helps you to avoid this problem, I think.
Where everything sounds like Horowitz.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay, anyone?
Nothing wrong with that. But
Michael, 1 second. Can you unmute yourself, Michael? Because yeah.
There I go.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as a pianist myself, I've often heard that it's presumptuous for somebody in their 20s or early 30s to perform, let's say, some of the late Schubert or late Beethoven, or like the Liszt B minor, that this is only for somebody who has decades of life experience, because these pieces require that sort of maturity. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that?
Gosh, you're not letting me off the hook easy today.
No.
Well, okay, so Schubert died when he was 31, right?
Yeah.
So necessarily we don't, I mean, just by definition, you can have this, you can do this when you're 31. I don't know. There's a fine line, because I would not think that, somebody who's, a piano student in their teens, who's never, who's played one Beethoven sonata and one set of variations, they should not jump into Opus 110 or something. That's clear. That's obvious to me. On the other hand, I think we need to be playing these pieces not too early, but not to wait for them, because, I mean, the pieces that I'm getting in my fingers now, that I'm practicing now, are the pieces that I'm going to be playing really well when I'm older. I assume, or I hope. And to delay the process just kind of pushes everything back. So, during this time when I'm at home and I'm practicing, I'm getting a lot of those kind of pieces in my fingers, because I think, there's a certain set of repertoire that I definitely want to play someday. I definitely want to perform the Hammerklavier Sonata. Okay. And it's going to be easier to learn that fugue right now than it is going to be to learn the fugue in 20 years, right? Probably. So I'm getting it, and I'm getting it in my hands now, and I'm not going to play it next month. I'm not going to play it in 3 months. Maybe I'll play it if I feel like it soon, but maybe I won't. But I'm going to have the option. So pieces like that, I want to get started on. I'm inclined to kind of get started on them sooner, so that I, have an idea what I'm dealing with. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because you talked about playing with singers, and I remember sitting in on some coachings, and the teacher would always be asking the singer, "What are you trying to say? What do you think the meaning is here?" And of course, I think it's so appropriate, for any instrument. But if then the teacher would just say, if you have not had the life experience, like say a loss of a parent or a loss of a good friend, or having fallen in love and be rejected, then how can you express that if you haven't gone through it?
Right. Yeah. I think there's something to that. It's hard to, to make it kind of a definite thing, because I can't really, understand what someone else has gone through. I only know my experience. Right. So, I may have had a certain experience that I feel, now it qualifies me to play this piece and this piece, but, this person might have had an experience that I don't know about, that, they'll use in their own way to make meaningful,
Did we lose Reed? Yikes.
Uh,
No. It's frozen. Is he frozen on your end as well?
yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yikes. Well, let's see. I'll text him to let him know. Reed. Well, what I want to see, since we lost him for a moment, I want to experiment with something and try to play a video of Reed's YouTube clip. So I wanted to, could you hear this?
Yes. Yeah.
How was the sound quality on the other side? 1 second, I'll unmute you guys so that you can actually speak. Natasha, you were saying?
He can't reconnect.
Reed cannot reconnect. I see.
He's trying. He's trying.
Let me see if can I help him somehow. But in the meantime, I just wanted to know from everybody's side, was it good, bad?
Good.
Yeah?
Good.
Okay, great. No, because
Milana, it's not, it's hard to tell because for each different user, their setup and, like my Wi-Fi may affect how it appears on my screen, but there's a very slight kind of stop actions in the video.
But could you hear the sound?
Yeah, for a short clip, it's a lovely example. But the sound, the audio, and the video don't necessarily sync either.
Well, that is something that hopefully Zoom people will figure out quickly, because I think it would help, all of us in a way to have presentations and and do things like that, right?
Mine was very good.
Yes, good. So
it's perfect for using as an example.
There?
It's not of the quality you'd want to watch a concert.
Well, yeah, I don't think we can definitely rule out the concert experience, but Beatrice, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it also depends what kind of electronic equipment you're using. I'm just using my iPad, so of course the sound is compromised for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think we can expect the CD quality by any means. But
yeah, I was just comparing to Alicia's Zoom concert this past Saturday, and because that was direct, it wasn't pre-recorded, it wasn't from YouTube, and the sound quality and the video were very, very close together. There were moments, sometimes a little bit of delay, but it came across really well, and she did a whole concert, and you didn't get tired.
So, Michael, how did it work? Was it an experience like this, and Ася was part of it, or?
She was by her. Well, I know she must have had somebody in her apartment in Boston to help her with the camera work and the sound.
Right.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Reed.
It's my dad's laptop, so it says J Tetzloff.
We're just, I'm listening. I asked Michael to see how, the Zoom concert worked.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, in the words I got back from people here on Vashon who listened in, all were very entertained. Obviously, an in-person concert will never be replaced. But I think going forward, the aspect, let's say that you're off someplace and you cannot attend a concert, which you would like to attend, I think a live Zoom broadcast is really very, very close. Again, like as one person here said, yeah, it'll be a big difference if you're listening to it on an iPad or on your iPhone versus a computer that's connected up to your sound system at home, which is what I have. And it was a very, very good quality that way.
Right. I wonder, if the sales of good audio equipment will go up during this pandemic. Yeah, you have very good earphones. Serious stuff. So, Reed, back to you. Sorry, we lost you. We heard a little
part or something.
Oh, it's perfect. No, we were actually listening. I experimented with showing a YouTube clip of you playing.
Oh, okay.
So we heard just a snippet from your concert here.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Cool. Okay.
So we were talking about interpretation, about the young person versus years of experience. So just learn the pieces now and then perform them later, correct?
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have a good answer, but I mean, for me, I think I think you want to learn them sooner rather than later and get them.
Well, it would be a good experiment to record as many things as possible right now and then come back to them 20 years later and then 30 years later and see what happens.
Yeah.
Anybody else has any other questions?
I just have a quick one about Scriabin in particular, and that video clip helped me because I've listened to Scriabin that just really leaves me cold, I admit. It seems as though he takes a lot more expression. You have to be very careful with expression when you're playing Scriabin.
Yeah. No, I don't know what piece you just heard, but I mean, he's I don't want to say cold, but in a sense, he's not really like he doesn't invite you in. He doesn't give you a hug. It's not like this warm emotional thing. He was an ultra narcissistic person. He thought he was God, as I said. But more than it's never going to be like Brahms, late Brahms, where it's just so emotionally immediate. But the experience, I would think of it more as kind of the experience of like going to another world, something that's not what we experience every day. It's not love and loss and passion. It's a trip to another world or another galaxy of some sort, and to sort of have that sensory experience is special and unique to Scriabin in many ways, I think. But yeah, I wouldn't pretend that it's extremely warm music. So your impression, I think, is accurate in many ways. That doesn't mean it's not great or interesting music, and we have to be careful with how we're expressing it, because we don't want to make it something that it's not. So everything that you do with Scriabin has to be unique to him, and that's what makes it what it is.
Reed, before we close off, because we actually went over time as we always do,
Sure.
wanted to know are you planning to do any online concerts or anything like that?
Once I have the piano, I will. Sure. Yeah. Right now I'm practicing a lot on this upright, but I don't really want to put myself out there playing on it. It's very out of tune and twangy and this kind of thing. Once I have the piano, I will put some stuff out. Yes.
Yeah. So make sure that you keep us posted so that we can share it with
absolutely
your fans in Naples, Florida.
And I've been sharing old recordings during this time. I just also made one with as part of my duo, Reed Tetzloff duo, which is cello and piano, and shared that. And
how long you've been playing with Pia?
How long we've been playing? About a little over a year.
Okay.
The first time was early 2019. Yeah, we just really hit it off immediately.
That's wonderful.
Rehearsals, so that's been.
She usually plays with exceptional pianists, so you're in a very good company.
I've been honored. Yeah, thank you very much. She's so.
Wonderful. Any closing comments? Anyone? Nothing. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for.
I think Gala had
Greg. Gala?
Yeah.
Gala wants to talk. Gala, you have to make sure that I see your hand when you. Okay. Wait. Oh my God. Come on, unmute. Okay, you're on.
Okay. I just was interested that you mentioned, he mentioned that he's out in nature there in Massachusetts. I'm a musician, and I most of my life I've been teaching nature. Learn to listen to the sounds of the birds, and when you first go, I don't even hear it. But once you learn, you go birding, you start listening more. Has that affected you the way you interpret music when you're out there more in nature?
Sure. I don't know if I can directly say that, because I saw this nature, then I play this way. But so many composers have been, inspired by nature. Beethoven would walk every day in nature. And actually now I'm thinking of Ives. Ives said something about Thoreau, which was, he said Thoreau was a great musician, and it's not because he played the flute, but it's because he didn't have to go down to Boston to listen to the symphony. Meaning he heard it all around him. Oh, that's nice. But there's so much music in nature, and I think we can all draw a lot from that. So definitely.
Well, we have a few New Yorkers today. So Beatrice, Gale, you are tuning in from New York. So thank you so much. You're sharing with us the pictures of Central Park and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's great. We have a good group of people tuned in from all over. So if nobody else has any more questions, I will call it a day and invite you all to tune in next time Next guest is going to be Dominic Celli, who played in our series. He opened our Beethoven Sonata series, who is also a brilliant pianist. And so if you're interested, please tune in as well. So
thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining. Reed, thank you. Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Good to catch up with you.
I'm glad we covered it.
Wonderful.
Well,
thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Take care. Thank you, Milana.
Stay well, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.